What I'm about to show you may completely change the way you wake up tomorrow morning. Because the most dangerous thing some people do for their heart is not smoking, not eating bacon, not missing the gym. It happens before they even fully open their eyes. And when I reveal the 30-second mistake that can turn a normal morning into a medical emergency, you're going to understand why so many heart attacks, strokes, and sudden collapses happen in the early hours of the day. When people think they're doing nothing dangerous at all. I'm Dr. Eliza Wright, and I need you to listen very carefully. Your heart does not wake up in a neutral state. It wakes up in a biological storm. Your blood pressure begins rising. Your heart rate starts climbing. Stress hormones begin to surge. Your blood becomes a little more eager to clot. And if you already have high blood pressure, plaque in your arteries, diabetes, poor sleep, or you're over 60, that quiet little moment between waking and getting out of bed is not nearly as harmless as it feels. Not even close. Please subscribe now so I can keep bringing you simple, life-saving heart advice that protects you and your family daily. Now here's why this matters more than most people realize. Many viewers assume heart attacks strike during hard exercise, emotional breakdowns, or major disasters. Sometimes they do, but the truth is much more unsettling. For many adults, especially older adults, the body's own morning chemistry creates a window of extra vulnerability. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the morning habits that quietly raise heart attack risk, and I'm saving the most overlooked one for last. Because number one is so common, so fast, and so deceptively innocent that millions of people do it every single day, without the slightest idea they're gambling with their circulation. Let me start with Harold, because his story reveals the habit most families miss completely. Harold was 71, a retired accountant, disciplined, thoughtful, not the kind of man who took reckless chances. He didn't smoke, he took his medications, he walked after dinner, but every morning he woke with a dull headache, a dry mouth, and that heavy, foggy feeling he blamed on age. His wife said he snored like a chainsaw and sometimes stopped breathing long enough to scare her. Harold laughed it off. He said everybody snores. And besides, he was still functioning. What he didn't know was that his heart had been fighting all night. Habit number 7 is treating poor sleep as if it has nothing to do with your heart. That is a dangerous misunderstanding. When breathing repeatedly stops during sleep, oxygen drops, the nervous system gets jolted, blood pressure spikes, and the heart is forced into repeated stress cycles over and over until morning. People wake up thinking the night was restful because they don't remember the interruptions. But the body remembers, the arteries remember, the heart remembers. And when dawn comes, that already stressed cardiovascular system gets hit with the normal morning surge on top of everything else, which is exactly the kind of layering that can push a vulnerable person into trouble. Harold finally had a sleep study after nearly passing out in church one Sunday morning. The result was severe sleep apnea. Once treatment began, his morning headaches improved, his blood pressure settled, and his energy came back in a way he hadn't felt in years. But what haunts me is this. For months, he thought his problem was tiredness. It was heart strain. So if you wake up with headaches, pounding heartbeat, dry mouth, crushing fatigue, memory fog, or your partner says you snore and gasp, do not dismiss that as normal aging, because sometimes the danger started long before your feet touched the floor. Now let me show you habit number 6, because this is where many people lose precious time. Habit number 6 is ignoring strange morning symptoms because they don't look dramatic enough to be a heart problem. Let me tell you about Lorraine, 68, who woke one Tuesday feeling off. Not severe pain, not the crushing movie scene chest grab. Just pressure in her upper chest, a little nausea, some sweat on her neck, and an unusual tiredness that made getting dressed feel harder than it should. She told herself it was indigestion. Then she told herself it was anxiety. Then, worst of all, she told herself she'd wait and see. By noon, Lorraine was in the emergency room having a heart attack. And I need every viewer to hear this clearly. Heart attacks do not always announce themselves with theatrical pain. Especially in older adults, and especially in women, the warning can be subtle. Chest pressure, jaw discomfort, upper back pain, shortness of breath, nausea, dizziness, sudden weakness, or a feeling that something is deeply wrong, even if you can't explain it. Morning symptoms are not something to monitor for a few hours if they're new, intense, or unusual for you. The body often whispers before it screams, and many people wait because the whisper didn't sound serious enough. The reason mornings are so deceptive is that people already expect to feel stiff, foggy, or a little unsteady when they first wake up. That expectation becomes dangerous. It gives real cardiac symptoms a disguise. Lorraine later told me the symptom that scared her most wasn't pain. It was the strange sense that her energy had just vanished. She felt like the battery had been pulled out of her body. That matters. Sudden, unexplained fatigue, especially with breathlessness or pressure, is not something to shrug off. If your body feels abruptly different in a way that alarms you, honor that alarm, because minutes matter more than pride. Now let's move to habit number 5, and this one becomes deadly every winter. Habit number 5 is stepping into cold air and doing sudden physical work before your heart has had time to warm up. Let me tell you about Walter, 74, who woke after a snowstorm, pulled on his boots, grabbed a shovel, and headed outside before breakfast. He wanted to clear the driveway before the neighbors were awake. Within minutes, he was breathing hard. Then came the pressure in his chest, then pain into the left shoulder, then fear. Walter survived, but only because his daughter happened to arrive early and called 911 before he lost consciousness. Cold weather is not just uncomfortable. It changes the workload on your heart. Blood vessels constrict, blood pressure rises. The heart must pump harder against tighter resistance. Then add sudden exertion, especially arm-heavy exertion like shoveling, carrying, scraping, lifting, or dragging wet leaves or trash bins. Now add the common habit of breath holding while straining. That combination can produce enormous swings in pressure and demand. People imagine the danger is the snow. It isn't the snow. It's the mismatch between what the body is ready for and what the body is forced to do within minutes of waking, while the morning surge is already underway. Walter kept saying the same thing afterward. But I do chores all the time. Yes, later in the day. Not in freezing air, not half-hydrated, not with stress hormones climbing, and not before his circulation had a chance to adapt. That distinction matters. If you have known heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, a history of stroke, shortness of breath, or you are generally sedentary, the worst possible morning decision may be sudden cold weather effort. Warm up first. Layer up. Let someone else handle extreme exertion when possible. Because for some hearts, that first hard task of the day is not exercise. It is an ambush. Habit number 4 is one almost nobody thinks of as a heart habit, and yet I see it all the time. It's grabbing your phone the second you wake up and flooding your system with stress before you've even taken your first calm breath. Let me tell you about Denise, 66, who started every morning with headlines, messages, bank alerts, family drama, and social media arguments before her feet touched the carpet. By 6:20 a.m., she had already frightened herself, irritated herself, and tensed every muscle in her neck. Then she'd notice palpitations and assume something was wrong with her heart. Sometimes the heart was the victim, not the cause. Here's what was happening. The body already has a natural rise in alertness hormones in the morning to help you wake up. That's normal. But when you add instant emotional stimulation, bad news, conflict, urgency, or fear, you amplify that surge. Heart rate jumps, blood pressure climbs, muscles tighten, breathing gets shallow. For some people, that produces a few harmless symptoms. For others, especially if blood vessels are already narrowed, it can be the extra push that turns vulnerability into an event. Your morning nervous system should be eased awake, not thrown into battle before sunrise. Denise changed one thing. No phone for the first 15 minutes. Instead, she sat up slowly, drank water, opened the curtains, and gave herself quiet before information. Her morning palpitations became less frequent. Her blood pressure readings improved. And perhaps most importantly, she stopped beginning every day in alarm mode. I'm not telling you to live without news or messages. I'm telling you that the first minutes after waking are physiologically precious. Protect them. If you have to choose between instant stimulation and steady circulation, choose steady circulation. because your body interprets digital stress as real stress. Now we get to habit number 3, and this one sounds so minor that people almost laugh when I mention it. Habit number 3 is waking up dehydrated and then going straight into stimulation instead of recovery. Let me tell you about Arthur, 73, who kept a mug by the coffee machine and treated it like an emergency device. Wake up, stand up, coffee down, get moving. He told me water was for later because coffee made him feel alive. But nearly every morning he had lightheadedness, a racing feeling in the chest, and occasionally a strange pressure when climbing stairs. He thought the caffeine fixed his low energy, when in reality it was layering over a problem. After hours of sleep, many people wake mildly dehydrated. That can be more pronounced in older adults, people on diuretics, people who slept in a warm room, people with diarrhea or illness, and people who already don't drink enough fluids. When fluid levels are low, the heart may have to work harder to maintain circulation. Blood can become more concentrated. You may feel weak, dizzy, or unusually fatigued. Then, if you pile caffeine on top immediately, some people will experience an extra bump in blood pressure or heart rate, especially if they're sensitive to caffeine or their blood pressure is already poorly controlled, and that can feel awful. I need to be precise here because nuance matters. Coffee is not the villain for everyone. Many people tolerate it just fine. I'm not telling every viewer to fear a morning cup. I am telling you that if you regularly wake shaky, dizzy, pounding, or tight in the chest, and your first move is caffeine on an empty, dehydrated system, you may be reading the signal backward. Arthur's improvement began when he slowed down, drank water first, ate a small breakfast, and stopped using caffeine as a rescue rope the second he woke up. That simple sequence change made his mornings far less chaotic. Now let's go to habit number 2, because this is where good intentions often create silent danger. Habit number 2 is taking your morning medications inconsistently, casually, or according to convenience instead of according to a real plan from your clinician. Let me tell you about Miriam, 70, who took her blood pressure pill whenever she remembered. Some days 6 a.m., some days 10 a.m., some days after lunch if errands ran long. She told herself a few hours didn't matter because she was taking it sometime in the morning, but her blood pressure log looked like a storm. High one day, normal the next. Then frighteningly high again. The morning rise in blood pressure is already one of the most sensitive periods of the day. If your medication timing is all over the place, the protection you think you have may not line up with the hours you need it most. This is not permission to change your schedule on your own. In fact, please don't. The lesson is the opposite. If you're prescribed morning medication, take it the way it was intended, consistently. If you're having side effects, breakthrough morning spikes, or confusion about timing, bring that up with your doctor instead of improvising. Hearts do poorly with chaos, even when the chaos looks minor on a kitchen counter. Miriam eventually started using a written routine. Same wake time, same medication check, same breakfast pattern, same log. Within 2 weeks, her readings became understandable again. And that matters because the most dangerous habit in heart care is not always neglect. Sometimes it's randomness, random sleep, random stress, random pills, random exertion, random breakfasts, random caffeine, random rising from bed. Each one seems small. Together, they create a morning cardiovascular environment that is completely unpredictable. And unpredictable is the last thing you want when blood pressure, clotting tendency, and heart workload are all naturally rising before the day has even really begun. Now, we've arrived at the most common mistake of all. The 30-second morning mistake that I wish every person over 60 understood. The mistake that sounds harmless because it takes almost no time. The mistake that can trigger dizziness, falls, chest discomfort, racing heart, fainting, and in vulnerable people may help tip a dangerous morning into a serious cardiac or neurologic event. Are you ready? Here it is. The number 1 morning mistake is waking up and springing straight out of bed. As if your circulation can instantly go from sleep mode to upright exertion without consequence. Let me tell you about Robert. He was 76, proud, independent, the kind of man who moved fast because he hated feeling old. He woke every morning, swung both legs off the bed, stood in one motion, and marched to the bathroom before he was fully awake. One morning, he stood up so quickly that the room went black. He grabbed the dresser, missed, struck the floor, and fractured his wrist. But that's not the part that frightened me most. What frightened me was what came before the fall. He felt a violent rush in his chest, a pounding in his neck, and a wave of nausea, all within seconds. This is where physiology matters. When you've been lying down, blood distribution is different. The moment you stand, gravity pulls blood downward. Your body must respond instantly by tightening vessels and adjusting heart function to keep enough blood flowing to the brain. In younger, healthier systems, that adjustment is often smooth. In older adults, dehydrated adults, people on blood pressure medications, people with autonomic problems, heart disease, or stiff arteries, the adjustment may be slower or unstable. That's when dizziness, lightheadedness, blurred vision, weakness, or near fainting can happen. And remember, this is occurring during the very hours when the heart is already under extra pressure, not during a neutral window. People get confused here because they hear two truths that sound opposite. One truth is that blood pressure naturally surges in the morning. The other truth is that standing too quickly can cause a sudden drop in pressure to the brain. Both can happen in the same person. That's exactly why the transition is so risky. The cardiovascular system is not a single simple lever. It's a fast-moving balancing act. You can have a heart working against rising morning pressure, while the brain briefly gets less blood because posture changed too quickly. That combination is why some people feel pounding and faintness at the same time, and why the first seconds upright deserve respect. Robert had coronary artery disease and never connected his fast-rising habit to his symptoms. He thought the pounding meant he was being energetic. He thought the dizziness meant he was dehydrated. He thought the near falls were just clumsiness. They were signals. Once he learned to wake in stages, his symptoms improved dramatically. No, standing slowly does not eliminate all heart attack risk, but for the right patient, it removes a totally unnecessary stressor from the most delicate part of the day, and that's the point of this video. We are not trying to create fear. We are trying to remove avoidable strain before strain becomes tragedy. So what should you do instead? Here is the safer 30-second protocol, and I want you to picture yourself doing it tomorrow morning. First, when you wake up, do not launch upward. Stay lying down for about 10 seconds. Take 2 or 3 slow breaths. Wiggle your fingers, move your ankles, let your nervous system know you are waking, but do not demand full performance from it immediately. Then roll gently to your side and push yourself to a seated position. Sit on the edge of the bed for another 10 to 15 seconds with both feet planted. While you're sitting there, notice your body. Are you dizzy? Is your vision dim? Do you feel chest pressure, nausea, unusual breathlessness, or pounding? If yes, do not push through it like a hero. Pause. If the sensation is severe or alarming, get help. If you feel steady, stand up slowly while holding a stable surface. Give yourself another moment before walking off. That's it. That is the 30-second habit. It sounds tiny because it is tiny. But tiny habits at dangerous times can have enormous consequences, just like tiny sparks in dry forests. And I want to add something very important here. If you take medications that lower blood pressure, if you've ever fainted, if you've had a stroke, if you have Parkinson's disease, diabetes-related nerve damage, heart failure, or repeated morning dizziness, this slow rise routine is not optional. It is protective. You may also need a fuller evaluation because persistent dizziness on standing is not something to normalize. Too many people tell me, oh, I've always been like that. No, always dizzy is not the same as safe. Familiar symptoms can still be dangerous symptoms, especially when they begin to worsen. Now, I need to tell you about the mistake people make after learning number 1, because it's subtle and it matters. Some viewers will hear this and think, fine, I'll stand slowly, but then I'll hurry into everything else. No, the first 30 seconds are only the doorway. The rest of your morning still matters. If you rise slowly and then immediately check upsetting news, skip your medication, chug coffee while dehydrated, ignore chest pressure, and go shovel snow in cold air, you have not protected your heart. You have only delayed the strain by half a minute, which is not the same thing as reducing it. That's why I want you to think of mornings as a sequence, not a moment. A safe morning heart routine is calm waking, slow rising, symptom awareness, hydration if appropriate for you, medication consistency, gentle transition into activity, and respect for warning signs. It is not glamorous. It will never trend on social media, but it is the kind of quiet discipline that prevents emergency rooms from becoming part of your week. People love dramatic prevention advice because it feels powerful. The truth is more humble. Hearts are often protected by ordinary routines repeated faithfully, long before anyone sees a crisis coming. Let me give you one more story because it brings everything together. Elaine was 72. She slept poorly because of probable apnea she hadn't treated. She kept her phone by her pillow and woke to stressful alerts. She rose too fast. She felt dizzy but ignored it. She skipped water, drank coffee, and rushed outside on cold mornings to let the dog out while carrying feed buckets. One February morning, she developed jaw tightness and nausea on the porch. She almost went back inside to wait it out. Instead, because her daughter had been nagging her for months, she called for help. It was a heart attack, and that call likely saved her life. Afterward, Elaine said something I have never forgotten. She said, "I thought danger would feel dramatic. I didn't know it could feel like an ordinary morning going slightly wrong." That is exactly it. Most dangerous heart mornings do not begin with a trumpet. They begin with a little dizziness, a little pressure, a little haste, a little breathlessness, a little denial. Your job is to interrupt that pattern early. Not when you collapse, not when pain becomes unbearable, early. During the habits, during the routine, during the part of the story where you still have control and the body is still giving you a chance. So let me give you the complete morning heart protection routine in one clean flow. Wake up and stay still for a few seconds. Breathe slowly. Sit before you stand. Stand before you walk. Notice any warning signs. Drink water if your doctor hasn't restricted fluids. Take medications consistently as prescribed. Don't flood your brain with stress the instant you open your eyes. Be cautious with immediate caffeine if it makes you pound, shake, or spike. Avoid sudden cold weather exertion. And if your sleep is broken by snoring, gasping, or morning headaches, investigate it, because night problems often become morning emergencies. And let me be absolutely clear about emergency symptoms, because this could save a life in your home. If you wake with chest pressure, chest pain, pain in the jaw, arm, back, or shoulder, sudden shortness of breath, cold sweats, unexplained nausea, fainting, or a crushing sense that something is very wrong, do not drive yourself. Do not shower first. Do not finish breakfast. Do not wait to see if it fades. Call emergency services. If you live with someone older, learn these signs yourself. Sometimes the person having the event is the last person willing to admit it, and a second set of eyes changes everything. I also want to say this for the stubborn viewers, because every channel has them, and I know mine does. Independence is wonderful. Pride is understandable. But ignoring physiology is not strength. Real strength is respecting the body before it humiliates you. Real strength is moving slower when slower is wiser. Real strength is taking symptoms seriously without feeling embarrassed. You are not weak because you sit on the edge of the bed for 15 seconds. You are intelligent. You are not fragile because you ask whether your snoring could be dangerous. You are responsible. Hearts do not care about ego. They care about pressure, oxygen, rhythm, and blood flow. And that brings us back to the beginning. The first 30 seconds of your morning can either help your heart transition safely into the day, or they can stack stress on top of stress at the exact wrong time. You now know the habits that raise risk. You know why mornings are biologically sensitive. You know the warning signs people dismiss. And most importantly, you know the one mistake that happens so fast, people never think to question it. Waking and rising like your circulation is a machine instead of a living system. It isn't a machine, and it deserves a gentler start than most people give it. Tomorrow morning, prove to yourself that prevention does not have to be complicated. Don't leap. Don't rush. Don't invite panic into the room before your body is ready. Wake gently. Rise slowly. Pay attention. Protect the heart you are asking to carry you through another day. And if this message helped you, subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who bolts out of bed every morning, and keep learning how to make small choices that prevent big emergencies. Your safest mornings will never make headlines. And that is exactly the goal. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.